On this week's episode of the RAG podcast, I was joined by Tom Glanfield. Tom is the founder and former CEO of LHI Group, which consists of multiple brands. Most commonly known, Lawrence Harvey was the first brand. And they are a business now of 250 staff, 100 million turnover, 25 million net fee income, and offices in the US, in Europe, in UK. I think most people would know Lawrence Harvey and the LHI Group. A lot of people know Tom. He's not someone who shares a lot online. He's not a big advocate of personal branding or hasn't really done a lot in the past. I know that because I messaged him multiple times on LinkedIn to get him in, and he just ignored it. He didn't see it. And when he did, he came straight in. So it's great. But he's actually a genuinely great guy. This guy started his recruitment brand at 23, having 8 months recruitment experience, a $9,000 loan, and started it in the attic of his girlfriend's house. He was eating tins of beans and wrapping himself in duvets when he was cold. He lived in his office for probably about 2 years in the first 5 years. He reinvested everything into his business and his culture, and has grown one of the industry's most well-known and reputable brands there is. Behind it all, he was very honest about his personal life, how he married his first employee. They later got divorced, and he kind of put his work in front of family. He's now in a position where he's learning from that. He's just got engaged, which is fantastic news. But he's also stepping back now as from CEO to founder of LHI Group, with a plan to have an event or a financial exit at some point. And he's also looking at launching a new brand where he's going to invest in tech companies, startups, and recruitment businesses as well. So I really got under the bonnet of Tom's personality and how he's been successful. I loved this episode because he just told stories. He was so open about it. And we also got some really, really insightful nuggets of 3 or 4 things that he believes every recruitment owner should consider to be successful. So I've got no doubt you're going to enjoy this and you're going to learn from it. So without further ado, Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Sean.
Good to have you in.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's all right, mate. It's been a pleasure to have you in. We've had an hour with you before. You're one of the earliest guests who've ever arrived in my office.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm normally late, and I thought this time I want to make some time to come on here and find
Get in early. You said were you in London all day?
I've been in London all day. I mean, I'm quite glad that this is effectively a non-video interview, because I've just been stuck in the Canary Islands for 3 days.
There is a video, there is a camera right there, so don't worry.
It's the bad side as well. I've got a swollen eye because I was in a sandstorm for 3 days, and then bad back. So I've just been to an osteopath, and I've got that kind of slight drool face as well. So,
worry.
Good to stick to the podcast.
Oh well, most of our listeners are audio, but if you do want to know what Tom looks like, get on YouTube and have a look, because I think he looks fine. But Tom, pleasure to have you, mate. I've been chasing you for a long time to be on this show, and you ignored me a few times. But you said you don't read your LinkedIn messages.
I'm bad on LinkedIn. I need to get way better. I remember seeing your message, and I responded immediately. And I noticed you'd messaged me about 3 times before.
You were like, mate, well up for it. I was like, what happened to the fucking 3 times before?
So anyway, sorry about that.
You're here now, and it's a pleasure to have you in. So I've given you an intro, but I can never do it justice. Can you just, for the listeners' benefit, tell us who you are and what you're up to right now?
Sure. So my name's Tom Glanfield. I'm the founder of LHI Group, which effectively runs 5 brands. So Lawrence Harvey, Cypro. Lawrence Harvey is a tech recruitment business. Yeah. Which is
that the most that's the original, right?
Yeah, that was the original business, originally set up. Cypro is in life sciences for science professionals. Pythomatics, which is a renewable energy brand. Harper Harrison, which is the built environment, and XPS, which is a consulting arm of the business. Right. But effectively, it's a good time for the podcast. I mean, I actually did one sort of 5 years ago when I was kind of right in the throes of running Lawrence Harvey and everything. And I guess I'm in a slightly different situation now where I always get a bit philosophical with people about where you're going with the business and things like that. And I think when I first started the business, I probably wouldn't be able to articulate this as well, but effectively, I've always been trying to replace myself with better people, and
you finally
and eventually kind of step away. And I've finally, stepped away and I've changed my name my title from CEO to founder, because I've now got in place an excellent group of people. Wow. And over the years, we've really matured as a team. I mean, it feels like a family. Everyone trusts each other. A lot of the guys who are now MDs or running offices, started as a graduate, and they've come all the way through to now running New York, MD of the States, running the West Coast operation. So I've left in place a great team. We've got a CFO now, a COO, a group MD, an MD of the States as well, a people director, a marketing director, who are basically forming the board of the company. And I turn up now and it's like the A team are there, and I'm the guy saying things. Everyone's looking at me going, yeah.
So how big is the business now?
So the business this year, we're looking to do about 100 million turnover, about circa 25 million gross profit.
Nice.
And getting that to a decent EBIT, sort of 4 to 5 million EBIT.
So what is it, 250 staff?
It's this year the 250 average, probably going for about 300 by the end of the year, nice. With 8 offices, so Manchester, Bristol, London, Munich, Paris, Austin, LA, and New York. So losing track. And as founder, I've stepped away for the board to be running it, and the business is really gaining momentum now, and they're taking an amazing journey. And a lot of people are going to realise that a lot of wealth. I think at the end of it, I've given away equity to all the senior sort of stakeholders. And me myself, I'm starting to focus now on other enterprises. I just love the challenge, so I love startups, and I think that's where my strength is. So I've started. I almost shouldn't be announcing this because I haven't even done the website yet, but I've started Teg Capital, where I'm investing in other businesses. So I've got a stake in Placed, which is an online platform, run by Jennifer, who's an awesome CEO, and really invested into her. And also a new company called In-House Recruiter, which is looking at placing in-house teams within companies. I've got the two directors of that are a brilliant pair. They both been working for LHI for a period of time now. So that's Esther McKay and Hannah Pete, who are coming from a recruitment and a job board angle. That looks like it's going to be a really successful model, which I want to scale very quickly with the two of them.
Right, so let's get on to the future, but let's go back. This podcast is about telling your story, right? So we had a little chat before, and I'm excited because what year was it when you first started the business?
So effectively trading really since 2003.
So when did you know you wanted to start a recruitment brand?
So I always wanted to start my own business. I don't know why I had a sort of desire to do that. I was always very ambitious to do well in life and grow something and work hard. And I did a degree in civil engineering, qualified in that, and then quickly realised this industry's pretty slow going. Yeah. I think my girlfriend at the time, I found out, was paying more in tax than I was earning, and she was doing recruitment. Yeah. And my brother had just qualified for the Olympics.
Doing what?
Sailing. So he got 2 silver medals in Beijing and Athens, and came 4th at Sydney. And I was like, well, I need to make a name for myself. It's going to take me a long time in engineering. So I went to recruitment. I joined S3 Group. We had a wicked experience with them. And I probably would have gone all the way with them. But I think at the time it was, you having your chair taken away if you didn't make an interview and things like this. And I was like, it's time to leave. I think I can do this better.
What? And how long were you there?
Under a year, so about 10 months.
And how old are you at this point?
23, 24.
Right.
So then I left.
Did you do well in that 8 months? Did you have a?
Yeah, I was second on the board when I left. But
that's pretty good in your first year.
Yeah, in London. But it was actually quite a tough market at that time. I didn't think I was ever the best out and out biller. But I never really got properly going. I was only there for 10 months. So the biggest challenge to me when I started was effectively cash and experience. And I really did the hard way because I was by myself with literally no money. And I was quite aware of a lot of people said, you have a joke at the S3 Group that I was there on work experience because I looked so young. So I had to start the hard way, the graduate loan, and effectively my decisions in calling the company name, what I called it, and how I went about that.
So Lawrence Harvey sounds like It's super professional. It's a strong name.
Yeah. So I didn't want to call it Tom Glanfield Associates, something like that, because effectively everyone would know I was a one-man band, and I was the director of that company. I actually didn't want people to know I was the director of that company. So, I mean, you take your own spin on this, but I found out legally you can trade under any name you want, but you have to sign everything as, if you're a registered director, as your name. So I actually changed my name to traded under Tom Edwards, and my director was Tom Glanfield. So I actually...
was LinkedIn around? LinkedIn was around then?
LinkedIn was around, but really in its infancy then. No one was really using it. So
is there an old Tom Edwards profile?
So, well, I know there isn't. So I was Tom Edwards, and my director was Tom Glanfield, because I wanted people to... I always said I was a consultant. I was Tom Edwards, consultant for Lawrence Harvey. My director's Tom Glanfield. I changed the name Lawrence Harvey. Again, not sure if I'm saying this or not, but I had an old family friend called Harvey. But I'd heard this story through friends of Packard Bell coming along. Obviously, everyone knows Hewlett-Packard, which is a big global brand now and always has been for as long as I can remember. But Packard Bell was a small company in Belgium that flew because everyone associated it with Hewlett-Packard, with that trust, subliminal trust in the name. So obviously Harvey Nash was a big name at the time, and I had a family friend called Harvey as well. So I thought, like, Harvey is a great sounding name, like to have as part of the name.
And it could be a spin-off of a bigger brand, right?
Yeah, maybe. I'll let people decide whatever they want. And then compliance was a big thing at the time. So I had law. So I had basically Law Harvey. So that it just flowed then Lawrence Harvey.
Yeah.
And then I actually had... I started the company in the attic of my girlfriend's house. I literally had I had $9,000 in the bank from a graduate loan in Reigate. So I renamed her house at the post office to Harvey House. A lot of people know you can do that for free. So,
anyone can do that.
So it went from 32 Effingham Road, Reigate, to Harvey House, Reigate.
And you can do that?
Yeah.
Now you can.
I don't know if you can do it now, but
wow.
I mean, 15 years
ago,
you can...
my home's a Hoxo house.
Yeah, exactly. Do it. You should do it. And I had a tape recording of me and some friends on the phones that I played on surround sound.
See, this is ridiculous. Explain what you mean by this.
Well, I just think, everyone buys into success, and if they feel like you're doing well, they want to be a part of that. Yeah. And so when I called clients, or they called me, I had loads of people on the phones on the surround sound around the office as background noise.
Wow. And
they made their own assumptions. They would just say to me things like, "You sound really busy," and I'd be like, "Yes, we are."
Yeah.
And people
the word "we" as well doesn't sound very strong when there's no one in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, my dad was company secretary, so "we" wasn't a lie. There's two of us in the company. And I just set about doing, obviously, a great job for my clients. I'd come from a professional background before recruitment in engineering, so I really wanted to apply that to the market and generally do a fantastic job.
What was the first few weeks like, though, in a attic with 8 months experience? What the hell were you doing? Were you just... And back in the day, you said you bought jobs.
I started completely from cold, so didn't take any clients from me, didn't take any candidates, the real hard way. I was thinking business. There's a guy called Vern Harnish who sums up really well. You've basically got people, strategy, cash, and execution. They're the 4 core things of any business. And cash was king then, because I after buying $5,000 worth of JobServe credits, I had $4,000 left to basically see me through. Mm-hmm. It took me a couple of months to make my first placement. And then that company didn't pay me for like 3 months after, because the guy didn't start for another couple of months. So I had to make this $4,000 literally last me like 6 months. And I was eating baked beans on toast. I was in this attic. I remember in the winter, actually sitting there with a duvet around me, and my receiver, my phone froze to the handset. I actually lifted the whole handset off the desk. And I'd come out into the road with like mole eyes. But none of that really mattered to me, because I was just so focused on making it work.
Were you doing contract deals at the time?
No, it's all perm.
All perm.
All perm. So it took me about a year to save up enough to take on my first employee, get enough cash in the bank. And again, starting from scratch by yourself is a lot harder, I think, than a partnership, because in a partnership, one person can focus on new business while the other person can focus on training or the admin side.
Filling jobs.
Whatever. So when you're doing it by yourself...
And you bounce off each other. Like, you can get each other through those low points. Where I remember, like, a couple of moments in our first few months, me and Amma would look at each other like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And then hopefully one of you picks the other one up. But you haven't got that. So you're bouncing off an attic wall. Yeah, and you don't have that.
Yeah, so literally...
Did you have a window at least?
No, there's no windows. I just had insulation, like literally. But I quite like that. Yeah, it's a bit like, you're watching an old Rocky movie where he's punching beef or whatever in a fridge chickens somewhere and chasing chickens. Yeah, exactly. And that was me. And it was really, it taught me a lot about business, about getting a real feel for where you are cash. I think a lot of people, if they started with £1 million in the bank, just would not appreciate cash. And for me, cash was king.
How much did you do in the first year? Can you remember what you built?
It wasn't much. It was about 150,000.
Still, if you're thinking about it, you live in an attic in Reigate called Harvey House. Making 150k back then, there's a lot of money. That is a lot of money to make.
Yeah, but it doesn't go that far because I wanted to put 6 months worth of running costs in the bank, because I knew that when I took my first member of staff, I'm gonna have to probably spend a month or two out just training, and or billings are gonna take a real dive. When I go to an office, I'm going to have to put a deposit down, I'm going to have to pay rent. So I had to go slowly. So the following year, I took on my first member of staff. I moved to an actual office. So I moved to basically Clapham, to pretty well a council estate, where it's the only place I could afford. And I actually had so little money that I'd actually split up my girlfriend by that time. And I lived in the office.
For how long?
6 months to a year, so say about 9 months. I lived in this office.
And you and a guy, you had one member of staff?
I had one member of staff initially, but then over the next couple of years, I started getting to about 8 to 10 staff.
So when you were living in the office, you had multiple people coming in every morning?
Yeah, so every morning I would have to be awake, dressed, and ready to open the door to the first person who came to the office, and then I'd have to be working to the last person left. But that was always
they would have thought that was my
work ethic
anyway.
and motto, and I think that's really important.
Did you ever get caught out?
Well, yeah. So there was a couple of incidents. The main one was I remember having your kind of worst dream, where I basically had a sofa bed I pulled out every morning. And I remember particularly one morning, I think I had a few drinks the night before.
Yeah, it's always.
And I woke up naked in bed, and I looked beside me, and there was a cup of tea beside me, and I was like, that's weird. And it suddenly dawned on me that the time, and I kind of sat bolt upright, sort of naked in bed, looked around me, and there was like 6 to 8 staff around me, all working away.
Like morning time.
And I was like, literally like morning time. I was like, morning guys. Then I kind of put the duvet around me and sneaked to the bathroom to have a shower.
Do you think in a way though, like, people are like in the early, when they join a startup, like they're kind of attracted to the quirks of a startup, like it makes people laugh and feel more connected than you never get the same people who join the corporate brand that would join you then anyway.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the hardest thing for me was to get people out to Clapham and to get people to join a company that was basically in a council estate.
And you'd never managed recruitment people before.
No.
So you had everything stacked against you.
But I just think, leadership. So I'd never say I was out of my friendship groups. I'm the guy who's a natural leader who shouts at everyone and blah, blah, blah. But in work, I've always led just by being a really hard grafter, and I think people follow that. Yeah. But you're right that in those kind of early years, you build a phenomenal culture. And a couple of years after, we actually had, and I learned from it, and I was obsessed about culture. Even I remember Liverpool thinking the Anfield fans are amazing. I remember seeing Liverpool players always going out and touching the crest. So we actually had an internal motto which was different to our external motto. So we actually had LHTID internally, which is Lawrence Harvey Till I Die.
Right, yeah.
And that was like printed on T-shirts and stuff, and actually a couple of people got it tattooed on them.
Wow.
Which always shows that people are quite strong about culture.
I've been asking people to get Hoxo on the wrist like me, but
after this, I'm getting everywhere.
Got to do it, mate. No one's done it. No. JJ,
especially if you push out this
JJ,
podcast.
You're watching. Are you gonna get Hoxo on your arm?
I'll think about it.
Yeah, he's not gonna do it.
Where's his loyalty?
He's bottled it, mate. Bottled it.
Where's his loyalty?
We'll be having a chat later. So you a couple of years in, you're living in Clapham. You hopefully. Well, when you moved out of the office?
Yeah.
Did you then start spending more because you were earning more?
Well, so I moved out of the office for a short period because I probably the next big evolution of the business was going from 10 to about 20 people, then saving enough to go to London.
Right.
So what I did was I moved out for a short period. I was kind of stuck at 10 for a little bit, and I knew I had to get past this 10 mark. I'd just been taking on graduates, and I needed to get a bit more experience in the firm. So I identified sort of 3 key roles I needed to recruit for, and that was a top perm biller, a leader, a team leader, and a contract biller, because I didn't know anything about contract. But for me to get those 3 guys or girls from other firms, I was going to have to pay them a lot of money and guarantees and everything. And I identified the people I wanted to get on board, and I went after them hard. But it meant me taking my earnings back to about 20 grand a year.
Yeah.
Even though I was running, quite by then a reasonably successful recruitment firm, about 10, 12 people. And I just got married as well, and my wife could never understand why I was paying myself less than most of the people who work for me. Yeah. And I was like, it's just because you own and run the firm doesn't mean you necessarily earn the most. You know?
Not on the day to day.
Yeah. So I went. I basically put my hands right back to be able to enable myself to get these people on board, and I went back to basically living in the office again.
With your wife?
With my wife. She actually worked for the firm. She was actually my first employee.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And a phenomenal consultant. And she, unfortunately, we're divorced, and we can talk about it later. But she's a phenomenal recruiter. She joined as a graduate. I trained her.
All right, so paint this picture then. How the fuck do you and your wife live the marital move to the office?
So this was interesting. So this was again...
Hope she won't mind us talking
this
about
again was... I can't believe I'm saying this in the podcast. This was again blagging it. So basically there was an office, there was an apartment above the office that I was renting. So I managed to get in touch with the guy who had that and asked if I could rent it as my own apartment, which I did. So me and my wife moved into there.
Right.
But
so you had a space at least.
What the guy didn't know was then I drilled a hole through the ceiling to put a wire through from the servers in the office, so I could then cable out that apartment and put computers in, so I could get another 10 people in the lounge there. So I then went back.
See, JJ's even laughing. Look, this is a first. He's normally reading some kind of gaming blog or something in the background.
So then I went back to having to answer the door every morning to the earliest member of staff dressed.
I bet, yeah.
Which after a while, it's like getting a bit lapsed because there's one girl who'd always get in at like 7 a.m. So I'd quite often answer it with a towel around me.
Yeah.
While I get showered up and. But
how did your wife cope with it?
Well, again, she was in the company and she was living and breathing it with me.
So she was quite.
She was invested and she really wanted it to work, and so she did the same.
All right, we're going
but the biggest issue was actually the landlord. So he kept wanting to come round every other month and see the place, and I'd always like fob him off. And then
have an excuse every time.
One time he insisted on coming round, and I was like, oh my god. So I was like. So I got this day and I had to move everything into the place downstairs for this one day. It was almost like 20 people rammed like sardines, holding the door shut downstairs surrounded by chairs and computers and
this was before laptops.
So and everyone kind of laughing and sniggering. Again, this is like the whole thing of making a culture in the team.
Yeah.
So as soon as him going, everyone running upstairs again with their chairs and tables and resetting up the office. But we eventually got enough money in the bank to then move to London and get a nice office.
So what year was that? 5
now
years
you're
in,
asking. It's probably about 8 years ago now. Into London.
So like
and that's when
2012 or something?
I guess we really started motoring.
So you, what were you? Can you remember what you were turning over at that point?
We were about 40 staff. We just hit. So
you'd crammed 40 into Clapham.
So this is 2012.
Yeah.
So it was about 8 years ago. Yeah. So we'd hit the fast track 100, fastest
so
growing.
10 years old at that point then?
Yeah, 9 years old, 8 years old. So we just hit the fast track 100 fastest growing companies in the UK, which again was a great experience, meeting Richard Branson and everything. So we were about 40 staff, and I couldn't tell you. I think our turnover was about 20 million or something, because we'd started hitting contract quite hard.
But you're piling people into basically.
Maybe it was a bit less. Yeah, it was about 20 million, 18, 20 million. But with about 40 heads.
In Clapham?
We'd got to like 25, I think, was our max in Clapham, and that was like bursting at the seams. Yeah. But again, it was a laugh, you know. Yeah. And there's a little pub beside us in Clapham called Out of the Blue, who were amazing to us. And every Thursday and Friday night, the whole team would always be in there till basically closing, together, having drinks and having fun. And everyone just loved hanging out. And we'd go to each other's houses, and I'd actually encourage managers to hold monthly dinners at their houses. So we'd take in turns hosting dinners at each other's houses. Yeah. Again, creating that team culture. But that pub actually went bust when we moved out. I think they suddenly realised that we were propping them up.
So you must have been at a similar age or younger than some of the staff you hired? Or did you bring? Was it all grads that you brought through?
No, it was all grads. So it was a very young company.
But you were still close in age.
Yeah.
I do find that, like, I think that's super important actually.
Yeah.
I think the agencies I see now, and I'm not naming any names, but I've seen some guys that they're much older than the staff they hire, and if they plug it with the generation in between, I think it works well.
Yeah.
But if they just sit there and they're 20 years a gap from the staff, I think.
Yeah, I think that
I just don't think it works.
I think that is hard. When we moved to London, I was kind of late 20s, and the average age of companies were about 25. So it's just a few years kind of older.
So what was your life like then? So you've moved out of living in the office.
Yeah.
You're still married to your wife who still works at LHI.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're 40 staff. Like, what's your life like? What were you thinking at that point? Because you're a super successful guy at that point in your late 20s. What's motivating you, right?
Well, I think getting to where I am now, where again I always thought, I always had this mantra now that be the stupidest guy in your boardroom, and I always thought I was the biggest underachiever, like everything I did. So I'd always work really hard to be good at whatever I did, and I still believe that now. So I was always trying to replace myself and get to a stage in the future where I'd create an amazing team and I could actually step away, because I actually love life outside of work. I grew up, my dad was a social worker, my mum was a nurse, actually health visitor. We didn't have a lot of money.
Where did you grow
up? In Devon, a small town in Devon. From a sporty family, where I got into sailing there. I had a lot of quite wealthy friends who skied, who travelled, and I didn't do any of that, and I really wanted it. So I wanted to make a success and earn money to have a life outside. But I also genuinely love seeing people's career and creating an opportunity for people. I love it now. And if people say, what's more important to you, money or the staff? 100% the staff now, and seeing people have amazing careers and changing their lives, and seeing people who've joined me from a building site as a graduate to now being the MD of the whole of the US operation, and going to their wedding and seeing their whole life sort of unfold. And so for me, I was still obsessed about the business.
Did you know where you wanted it to be though? Like, because
so
I get all these startups asking me, like, what's possible, and again, I think they listen to this show a lot of the time to kind of feed off your stories and inspirations. But like, I don't. I mean, I've got a plan for Hoxo now, but I don't think I didn't see that when I started. Yeah. You keep hitting different milestones, and then your vision, your opportunity grows in your head.
Yeah.
Did you always see the kind of 250 man business then, or did?
So I never never really thought like that. I always think sometimes you can turn to a dreamer and not make that happen. It was always just what's in front of me, one step at a time. I always remember watching football when I was younger, and I think it was, you had one football manager saying, we're going to win the Premiership this year, blah, 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 and they're like a mid-table side, and it just seemed like a bit of a dream. Alex Ferguson, who's running Manchester United at the time, being interviewed, and they're like, are you going to win the table? Even when they were top, he was like, I'm just focused on the next match. And so for me,
they all adopt that approach now.
It was me. I almost had no financial goal. I knew I just wanted to keep growing something, be on this kind of adventure with all the staff members on seeing something really develop. And it's just always been about the challenge for me. I just love a challenge. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. So for me, it was just challenging, because you always have challenging times, and again, managing cash for people.
In that first, let's say, moving to London is the phase we're at now.
Yeah.
Before that, in that whole Clapham entire journey, what was the lowest point? When would you say the most challenging moment you can, or multiple moments you can?
I mean, there's definitely points when you sleep in the office and then there's a leak upstairs and water dripping on your head, and you're trying to sort out the IT cables, and you're 25 and your mates are all going out with each other, getting drunk somewhere, and you're working 24/7, and you're starting to question yourself, and you're paying yourself 15 grand a year when you're paying your staff, some of them like 80,000 a year or whatever. But no, I guess I never doubted myself. And
did you have anyone who you sort of looked up to and got advice from back then?
No.
Because it's like, if I look at me, similar, my background, not from Devon. I actually used to go there in the summers. My uncle lived in, have you heard of Crediton or Latford?
Yeah.
Used to live there. So we used to leave Manchester down there and run around in the fields and then go back. But my whole background was about, I don't think I knew there was a world outside of working in schools or working in the NHS, or where I lived was very just working class people, and I didn't know an entrepreneur. I didn't know anyone. I used to think there was a job called a businessman. I thought that was a career path. So I still think it could be, but it wasn't only till later life. It's probably going to uni and meeting people from different backgrounds where I was like, fucking hell. And then when I went traveling, landed in Australia, and I heard about recruitment. All these things came to me late.
Yeah.
And then it was people like my boss at Vanquish, Steve, was probably, he was a lad from West Brom, Birmingham. I felt very connected to his background, but he was advising me how you can grow your business, how you can buy a house. I had that person for 4 or 5 years, and that gave me the confidence then to leave and do it. Because it sounds like you've had 8 months. If your family aren't mad entrepreneurs, who's pushing a 25-year-old to be sorting cables out and not being out drinking?
It's a really good question. I still have no idea.
Long-winded question.
I mean, again, it's just always been about the challenge for me. And whenever times got challenging, that's why I lived and breathed. And even now, even though I stepped away from the business, I've got into triathlons and Ironman events, and I live and breathe that, and getting involved in new businesses and going through the challenges of them. I love that. That's what gets me out of bed, and that's why I really want to invest in small businesses now and really help them. For me, it's not about investing in a big business that's doing well, where you guarantee to make a lot of money. It's about investing in something where you can see the potential, but they're not necessarily making any money at the moment. Yeah. But you can have a big impact.
You can gamble on it. And
you can work with the owners, and you can work with the people to get through the challenges, and work it through together, and be really hands-on in doing that.
It's kind of it's always been there. You just had this inner drive.
So just going back to London. So obviously we're in London, I wanted to keep growing the brands. So we went into different brands. And
where was the first office you went to in London?
So we had London, and then I wanted to go international. So we were specialist SAP recruiters in IT at the time. So I knew I wanted to go to Germany, because it's a German company. So I had it in my head, right, go to Germany. So I took a whole team from Huntress and opened basically Munich.
How did you go and get a team from Huntress?
Just headhunted. So I was in touch with the team leader, the manager of the German office, and kept meeting him. And basically, I feel a bit bad because Huntress, I think, wanted to kill me at the time. But took basically the whole German operation, which was a massive learn for me because it was really expensive. I didn't know any of these guys so well, and I learned a lot from it.
Did it work?
Well, it does now, and but we lost a couple of guys immediately just because we didn't know them very well, no. and I think a lot of them turned out to be not quite what we thought they were going to be. We'd paid massive retainers to them, which I think can make people a bit lazy. Mm-hmm. And the guy who now runs our Munich office, Chris, who's actually his birthday tonight, which I'm probably in trouble. I've got to get a 5:30 a.m. train tomorrow. Yeah. I said to Chris, I need to get an early night, and he's like, okay, we'll finish by 5:30. But he's a great guy. He now runs the office, and he was sort of consultant at the time, so he's kind of come through now.
From that Huntress group?
Yeah, from that Huntress group. It's actually taken a lot of investment in Germany. I learned a lot from that.
How much time did you have to spend there in the early days?
A lot. I was going there a lot. Almost weekly at the start, and then every other week. We'd opened in this time as well. We'd opened oil and gas, which was doing well, but the market fell out of oil and gas when the oil price crashed, and we then I then wanted to go overseas again, trying to get. After the recession and with the oil and gas price crashing soon after, looking at different revenue streams. So we went to New York, and we did it much differently there. We actually assembled a 4-man team
from London,
or basically our A team, our best billers all together, who just wanted to go to New York, and they were like literally the A team. Like they worked from midday to midnight. Every day in London for like a year, and then once they hit the target we'd set them, I can't remember what it was. It was like a couple of million GP or whatever. They then went to New York, and that was a phenomenal success because it's people you trusted, it was people you knew inside out. It's people you'd taken as a graduate.
They're culturally
people.
They understand
people you've been to their weddings, been to my own wedding, and they all went to New York, and that's it's now a 60-man office. And then we got obviously LA as well. So one of the guys in the original 4 who went to New York also went on to open the LA office, and then another one, the team leader, the manager for New York, Michael Bott, who opened New York originally, went to Austin, and Mike Giorgio then took over New York. From Mike.
Why 3 offices in one country?
Well, there's obviously the States is a big country. I mean, it's funny. Everyone talks about in Europe, go to Europe and go to Germany, go to France, blah blah blah. But culturally, they're actually way more different to the States. Than the States is much more in line with England, the UK as a culture than Europe. I mean, because the biggest thing in Europe is you've got language barriers. So and Germans who generally want to deal with Germans, ideally people speaking in German to them, then some English guy phoning up and speaking English. It's quite rude. And same in France. So in the States, it's an English culture. It's a massive economy. The tri-state area alone is the same economy size as Europe, but the time difference is. You've got in New York to LA is what 5 hours or something. Yeah. And again, trying to see someone in LA, client meeting, the costs of flying from one side of the country to the other are high. And
I think culturally they're quite different as well. Like I spent 4 months in LA when I was younger, and I've been away to New York. I've never lived there, but I felt like New York was way more European, like way more fast paced. They're quite aggressive, a bit more like London, and LA is like chilled. Like they're more, they're just different people, right?
New York is hardcore.
It's like London on steroids.
It's an aggressive market out there. Your guys get headhunted. It's fast paced. It's very expensive, and LA's kind of the opposite. But it's still very expensive. But it's very laid back, bit cooler. Everyone's on like. Electric skateboards and scooters and stuff.
I think I might be going there. I like the sound of that.
The climate's amazing on the West Coast in LA. But it's just a huge country, and culturally, every state you almost have to treat like a different country. Yeah, they're very different.
So in these moves, obviously you learned a lot from the first one. US, you're using more of you've took a London contingent and they've gone and landed and expanded across the country.
Yeah.
How much time did you have to keep? How are you managing that when you're in the UK? And how do you do it?
A couple of years ago, I was kind of at a breaking point of me physically. I mean, I think I've always had a good engine on me, but I was getting to a point where I was doing almost 3 flights a week. I basically had, New York, LA, Austin. Austin, has come along since I stepped away more. Paris, Munich, now Manchester, Bristol, and London. So there's a lot of offices basically all reporting to me. And the summer conference, I was trying to present at every office. The winter conferences, we'd do a States conference, end of year conference, and a European one. So we had 2 separate ones. So it wasn't too bad, the travel. But for the summer, I'd go to, so I did a presentation in London, and go out with the London team that night, wake up basically hungover, fly to Munich. I remember one time I went out with London, was pretty hungover, got up, flew to Munich, had to be out of Munich. I was out with the German team who absolutely went crazy after their conference. It was a really fun night. But I was in Pasha with them till about 3 a.m. I then had to get a 7 a.m. flight to Paris to then present to them, and then go out with them in the evening as well, and then fly back on Saturday, basically, dying. So obviously that takes its toll on you, and I've always been learning along the way. And again, I think a lot of this you can't learn from books. So there's always a different challenge for everyone in business, and there's no set formulas. It's really working out what you need to do and what your priorities are. And my priorities were to really bring through leadership, succession, give that autonomy and trust to people to run their own things. So I promoted people to MDs. So I promoted Mike to MD of America, Jim to MD of globally, brought in a CFO, and James Ash, who I met a couple of years ago, has had real impact on the business. He became basically COO of the business and is now chairman of the board with Jim as CEO.
At what point did you think about getting advice? Because you mentioned you did get an NED.
So prior to James, James basically started as a non-exec to me, but was a really great move, really hands-on COO, which I really needed at the time, and I value him implicitly now. We're kind of like a bit of a partnership now, looking at businesses. We work really well together. I think we complement each other really well. But he basically became the CEO and now chairman. I trust him again implicitly. But prior to them, I did actually bring in David Higgins. And again, David, I learned a lot from David. He'd obviously got a wealth of experience starting up. Obviously, Harvey Nash is a phenomenal success.
Yeah, well, we've got David coming in soon. So
yeah, really top guy, really nice guy. Yeah, and I went to his wedding and everything. And we were together for a few years, and he kind of ran his course. He was more of a non-exec that I'd come along to once a month board meetings. And for the first time, I was actually getting advice on things. Yeah. Which is good and bad, because it was someone who's really challenging everything I did, which I did like, but I'm someone who sometimes I think people think too much. And that sounds a strange thing to say, but people think too much, and they start thinking about everything that can go wrong.
You just think doing it is sometimes better than doing
and just doing it. I mean, I remember New York, going on against New York, and David, saying, Dane, it's tough to open there, and the costs and the business can't really afford it right now. Yeah. And you start doubting yourself, which he was absolutely right to say, and it's really good advice. And I looked him in the eye and said, look, I need to get more cash, so I'm going to get 250k. And he's like, where are you going to get 250 grand from? And I then said, I'll get it from the staff. And he was like, how are you going to do that? And I got the staff to all buy equity in the business, and I got the next week 250 grand. Wow. And then we used that cash to start New York, and we just went there. And his strategy, he was like, what's your strategy to go to New York? And I was like, they speak English. The tri-state area alone is the same economy size as Europe.
Yeah, just go.
And if you got an English accent, they're going to add about 10 points on your IQ. So over there, we're like Superman.
I don't know if it's quite the same.
So sometimes I just think, I've had meetings today, and I've had a lot of meetings recently with people asking me advice on how to open in America, and they're all focused on the legal aspect. How do I start an Inc. company? How do you get the financials in place? Blah blah blah. And that's the wrong thing to think about, because you can spend all this time setting up the company and a great expense, but never selling anything or doing any sales.
Yeah.
My whole philosophy was, let's just bill a lot of money and worry about that afterwards.
But are you able to trade from London without setting up the corporation?
Yeah, you can do that.
And it's still the same now?
Yeah.
So you could just start up from London tomorrow?
Yeah, and you could invoice American companies.
Yeah.
And I mean, along the way, we then took advice and opened an Inc. Registered in Delaware.
That gives you then trade.
Yeah, and as we then obviously then went over to the States and then opened an office there. But I think sometimes you just gotta get the sales, get that done, and worry about the logistics afterwards.
I like that,
because if you've got a lot of money in the bank, you can pay the best advisors, and while you're small, you can't do anything that wrong. I mean, look, if someone then contacts you saying, "Hey, you haven't got a registered company yet," or whatever, then
get it sorted.
Then do it. Do you know what I mean?
Simply.
So sometimes I just think a lot of people overthink things in business and worry too much about what could go wrong than just going full-heartedly into just doing it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will say to me, in board meetings, you say, "What's your B plan?" And I'll be like, the B plan is there is no B plan. Because as soon as you have a B plan, you're already thinking about failure.
Yeah, true.
So you just...
I don't like the thought of B plans.
You just make the A plan work. Go with the A plan.
I like it. So how long... Oh, so let's take the 8 years or so since you went to London. How did that trajectory go in terms of headcount, revenue across the group? I don't expect you to know everything, but
it's pretty well a linear line going up, just with an average 25% growth year on year. We still grew by 25-30% last year as a group, and as a group of our size, we'll probably go from 18-19 million GP last year to 25 this year. So we're still growing very hard. If anything, we're growing harder and harder with the size, which is phenomenal. Compared to our competitors, a lot of them are. And are you reporting 1 or 2% growth?
Unbelievable, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of growth in our industry, but what you've done consistently is incredible. What would you say? Did you keep in? You told me at the beginning that you were always about reinvestment, living in the bloody office. I mean, it's ridiculous, but I love it. Did you maintain that in a different way? But did you maintain that mindset all the way through?
Always, all the way through. And I'm either someone I think who's completely in something or completely out of it. And when I chose to step away effectively this year and become founder and promote Jim to CEO, that culture still exists right to that point. And I'll be working flat out in a company to now, going into LHI now sort of once every couple of weeks, really. Because you either got to live and breathe something.
So how did you make that call then? So how and when did you start to feel like, actually, what am I doing? Or
for a couple of years ago, we started putting in place basically a 5-year plan, or 3 years ago. So sort of 3 to 4 years into a 5-year plan, where that plan was very much about eventually an exit, and to exit, I wanted the business to prove it's running without me, and with that is me stepping away, but having in place a team below me that is running the company. So in a way, I feel like my time at LHI is almost kind of done, but the company's time is really getting going. If you look at Starbucks and Apple, like their growth was actually quite small until about 20 years of trading, where both had exponential growth, like really huge jump ups. And it's because it takes a long time to really develop a team, a trusted team, get the right people in place, get the model right, get the engine right, get your customer services right, get your training right. And I feel like every leader of every office I have is pretty well the best in their market.
Yeah.
I feel like Ed, my CFO, is ex-KPMG, senior KPMG, way brighter than me, probably looking at me going, who the hell's this guy I'm working for? James Ash, MD of Given Masson before, a really good hands-on COO.
Do you know what?
And all of them are the best. The best of the best. So.
I don't think. I mean, I might be wrong here, but my opinion is, again, I think I want to be like. I look at you and think that's the kind of person I'd want to be, right? Where I'd completely want to hire better, and I already have. I look at my team now at Hoxo, and I'm like, fucking hell. I said the other day, Friday wrap up. Jay will remember. I said, across the business, we always do this thing where it's like, what was your highlight of the week, right? And everyone's highlights are so different, but you've got a copywriter telling us their highlight about an amazing article they've wrote. You've got a videographer talking about an edit. You've got a strategist talking about a campaign idea. And I'm like, do you know what? The fact is, I'd hate to do all the things you do, but I fucking love the fact you love it. Like, it gets me excited. But I think that's the bit that these people might be smarter, but the entrepreneur in you is actually what's got them where they are. Like, it's what's got them excited. Yeah. So they might look at you, all right, you couldn't do their job necessarily anymore, but they couldn't do what you've done, or else they would have done it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to have a very, I think, clear vision, and you've got to put everything into it. And I think people trust you. I think that's one of the biggest things I've built in the business is trust. That I trust them and they trust me, and they know I would back them implicitly. We've had death in a firm where I went round to effectively the widow and who worked for me as well, and
oh my God,
and financially helped her out to get her through things. People know that I remember a girl having an issue with a boyfriend, and I let her stay at my house for 2 weeks to help her out. And you just go that extra mile for people, and if you do that for people, they'll do that for you. And I always remember. Yeah, one of the few books I've read that I love is Alex Ferguson's Leadership.
I love that.
Leadership. And,
I read that.
And it's just good old-fashioned leadership. If you work hard and people know you generally have their back and you're backing them, you'll protect them. Yeah, they'll do the same back to you. And effectively, I put an equity scheme in place where staff get up to 50% of the business. 50. So I said, look, it's a partnership. It's me and you. We're doing this together. I can't survive without you. Hopefully you can't survive without me, but I'm not sure that's the case anymore. But I want them to be rewarded. If there's an exit in the future, if there's a capital event. So everyone's very much invested. I've never thought this is all about me. It's about us as a company going through a journey together, and that's effectively what's happened.
What I want to touch on as well is your personal life and your experience of being so successful. And I mean, look, you told me before about the fact that you were divorced, right? So the lady that you lived with in that, like that was no longer. But how it was being the kind of all-on CEO. And trying to be a married man, like I'm kind of going through that early doors.
Well, you say, successful as I am, and I think success is always very much open to interpretation.
Sure.
Am I successful? I couldn't tell you. My brother's got a couple of silver medals in the Olympics. I've got, effectively £100 million turnover business.
I'd say that's pretty successful.
Well, yeah, but my sister, she lives in a very small house in Cornwall. She has an amazing family. She basically surfs every day, her and her husband. They don't earn very much money, but she's probably the happiest out of all of us. I think to achieve something, you've got to have had sacrifice along the way, and it's what you're prepared to sacrifice. And I think, I would say I probably, maybe got my priorities wrong a few years ago, and I put work over family. It was a very tough period. I had the recession, the oil and gas price had crashed, so financially it was really tight. I'd moved to the coast because I always wanted to be by the sea, And when the sort of oil price crashed, I thought I could work more from home, but I had to go back into the office. So I was commuting like 4 hours a day. I was flying a couple of times a week. So I just never really got to see my family. I had 2 very young boys, and unfortunately, I married an amazing woman, and the marriage fell apart because I prioritized work.
Yeah.
And so you say, successful, and am I truly successful? I'm divorced. I'd say a couple of years ago, no. I mean, I'd say now I have an amazing relationship with my ex, actually. Now I've really taken care of her financially. I feel I have anyway. So I've got a great relationship with her, and she's got a fella, and they're very happy.
Yeah.
I have an amazing relationship with my boys, and go all the time. I've recently got engaged, and
congratulations.
Thank you. And engaged to an amazing woman. So I feel successful now, but there's definitely a period where I didn't feel successful. And I think generally, philosophically, I always say to people, if I'm advising a business or working with a director, a partnership, whoever, I have quite a deep philosophical conversation of what are you actually trying to achieve here? What's your plan? Where are you going? Because you can end up with nothing as well. Sure.
Yeah. What is the point of it all? What are you doing it for? Yeah, I get that. But I think there is a lot of people out there that are going to be in relationships, starting recruitment businesses, and it's going to take a toll on it, right? It's going to take a huge toll. If you're going to be working all out, putting every penny and every minute of your brain into growing something.
Yeah.
There's only so many hours in the day.
You asked me earlier, do you think you could start a recruitment business now and be successful? And I think, yes, you can, but it's a very saturated market. Would I start myself a company now? In recruitment, I'd probably say no, because I think to make it work, you have to be all in. You've got to do every hour that God sends you. You've got to work to make it happen. I mean, let's face it. Look, I've had some innovations along the way in recruitment. I've had to learn how to make the best of what I've got with the finance available to me in recruitment. But it's not like Apple or where you've created this wonder product that is selling itself. In recruitment, it is like a Premiership football team. You've got to have the best players, you've got to work the hardest, and you will win if you do it better than everyone else. Mm-hmm. So anyone starting a recruitment company now has got to, you got to know it doesn't just come to you on a plate. You're going to have to work really hard. And for any relationship to work, your partner has to be invested into the business. But it's something that I did realize early on, probably more so in my employees and my own personal situation, where I know how all-encompassing it is. So whenever we threw parties, I invited their parents and their partners to the parties. And it was a bit like parents' evening. So we'd have, say, when we first hit 1 million turnover, we had it was like eight staff, whatever, and we threw a party then, and their parents all came along, and we invited clients as well. So I had, in this bar, I had like the head of recruitment for Accenture and my mum and dad, and them talking to them, and my mum and dad telling them stories about when Tom was young, he did this and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, Jesus. But if the parents bought into you, and the family around the girlfriend, husband, wife, whoever bought into you and the business, then they became much more invested in supporting their partner working for you, and their journey, and they're trying to build with you. And I think that's so important. When we hit the fast track, again, we had a massive party with 40 staff. Everyone's parents again came along. They loved it. And they were almost pushing their kids to work harder, and partners out the door to work harder, because they were so excited about what we were achieving. And I remember specifically going along to an Accenture client meeting, agency briefing, where it was like me and 10 agencies in a room, and me walking in and sitting down, and the HR director for Accenture came to me, hey Tom, how's Bob and Bev? My mum and dad. I'd be like, oh yeah, they're amazing. They send their best regards. And I remember all the other recruiters like looking at me, going, "How the fuck's he done that? Who's this guy? How do they know his parents?" So I think personal buy-in is the biggest thing. And even when I got divorced, I remember standing in front of my company and telling them what's happened, and me actually crying in front of the company, breaking down a bit, and again, this is what's happened, just want to let you know, but I'm still in it, I'm still working hard. And I think, again, if you get that personal touch, and we're all human beings, everyone has weaknesses and strengths, then people will buy into you more personally as well.
So, I mean, you're in a position now where you step back. What's your life like? Tell us what's world like for Tom right now.
I thought when I step away, hitting 40, stepping away more, I could go live on a beach or whatever. But that's not the case. I'm not wired that way. I love the challenge.
You do live near the sea, right?
I do live actually by the beach. I do live by the beach, but I've got into triathlon, so I'm doing Ironman events now. So I'm even tomorrow morning. I've got to get a 5:30 a.m. train to make a swimming lesson, which I've got.
But if you're hungover as fuck, you're not going to be able to do it. Like, you're going to be awful.
I will. I'll make it, even if I'm vomiting in the pool. I'll make it.
That's the old. That's the guy who cleaned his own windows and sorted out the cables in the night.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm doing that, but as I say, I've started Tech Capital now, which again might be a bit premature to say because I haven't even launched the company yet or the website.
But the premise of the brand.
But the premise of the brand, is to invest and work with entrepreneurs in helping them scale a business. I feel personally like one of the most well-qualified people in the country to do that. I've taken a company from effectively 9K graduate loan to 100 million turnover. It's not me and by myself. Obviously I've done it as a team of my staff, but not as a joint partnership. Two people starting together. So I know all the pitfalls of management, cash, strategy, and I feel like I want to work with people who I think.
Does it have to be recruitment?
No, it doesn't. I've started In-House Recruiter, which is recruitment, but it's a different spin to a standard recruitment agency, and I'm excited about them, Hannah and Esther. But I will branch out. I think the fundamentals of business are the same, right? It's about people, cash, strategy, and your execution, and that's the key thing. And if you get that all right, then the business will fly. So no, it doesn't have to be recruitment. I guess my brand and my contacts are generally in the recruitment industry, so that's what I come across a lot. Yeah. But no, Tech Capital are going to be investing in multiple different. So
if I'm listening now and I'm thinking, right, I'm about to launch my recruitment business.
Yeah.
I'll have a chat with Tom, find out what he can do. What would you do for that person?
Well, for me, it's about getting fully involved, with the business owner or co-owners or whoever started the business to really understand their goals and understand their challenges, and that's for me is the excitement. I love that. It's not about the money for me. I like to invest into them and ideally get some equity in the firm, but to really bring value and to see them really scale something, see someone go through the hard graft of making a truly amazing business and being a part of that, and that's what I love.
And you'd also look at, there's, as you know, like 81% of recruitment businesses last year in this country were sub 10 staff, and that there's a lot in that kind of where you were back in the day where they're just not kicking on.
As long as I've got someone who will work as hard as I could work, I could take any 10-man recruitment business to 100-man plus. I absolutely guarantee it.
Is there any markets you're interested in, or would it be?
No, it doesn't matter the market. It's literally down to the people. Yeah, the strategy part you can always work on, but it's literally just working closely with the owner. And a lot of people say, yeah, what's your model and blah blah blah. And hey, I'm sure I need to come up with something more catchy. But the business is unwritten, the challenges. You need to understand the challenges. You need to work with that owner, and you need to know where they can add. I can add value, and where they need to be maybe more self-aware. I think one of my only strengths when I started, LH was being very self-aware. Being self-aware that I looked extremely young, so no one's going to take me seriously. So having no ego, that I'm prepared to be just a recruitment consultant, not a CEO or director. Or I remember even David Higgins saying to me when he joined, Tom, you need to change your job title to CEO, because I was just director. And I remember writing back going, isn't that a little bit small penis? And he wrote back going, no. And I looked at his job title, it said CEO. I was like, oh God. Wow. But I think it's just not having that ego and looking at yourself, or someone helping you look at yourself, and what are your weaknesses, what are your strengths, and be able to help you. Someone. A lot of people can't do that. They can't admit if they're bad at something, or they can't let go of control, or and they're massive blockers to them starting and scaling a business. I see it all the time. The biggest thing, a lot of that's stopping people grow is their egos or greed and holding to their equity, or whatever it is. It's going to vary from owner to owner. But I truly believe, and again, I love a challenge. I'm up for any challenge that I believe I could go into any business around about 10, 12, 15, whatever people, and really help them scale to 100 people. And hey, I haven't failed doing it yet. And
sounds exciting. Sounds really exciting. So
maybe I will one day, but yeah, I can't wait for the next chapter and to really get involved with different businesses.
And you've got time. You've got the freedom to do it.
I've got the time and experience now, and if there's capital events in the future with LH, the money to also invest in the backing, and the contacts as well. I've got a very strong team with James Ash, my current COO in LHI, who I know will also want to be involved. So I think there's a real gap in the market right now for just a good, honest investor who wants to graft and get involved. I think certain people who I'm not going to name have kind of ruled that industry, and they've just been in it for what can I get out of it? I'm going to invest. I'm going to give you 500 grand as loan notes. And take effectively your whole business off you. Shaft you along the process, and
it's not about that.
And get a lot of money out of it. For me, that's not fun, and you can't look yourself in the mirror.
No.
And be proud of what you're achieving. For me, it's about the challenge, and working with someone and scaling it and seeing the impacts in their lives, and how you're changing the lives of all the staff in that company.
And I do think, like, you only know what you know, right? So having someone in the background like you that's been through probably everything they could think of.
Yeah.
It's just that end of the phone sometimes that you just need that, especially if you're a solo owner.
Yeah.
If you're a solopreneur and you're like I feel like having a business partner has been, for me, like, more than anything, it's just that decision board. Like, you've never done half the things you're doing. Like, you constantly come up with things that are new. So you're like, what do you think? Yeah. And I actually have got to the point now where my first question all the time is, what do you think? Because I want to get everyone else's, I'll make my own decisions, but I love getting other people's opinions, because I feel like the more I'm trapped in my own head, the more I'm only ever going to do what I do.
Yeah, you got to speak to a lot of people, and it's very easy sometimes to get stuck in a certain way of doing things.
Of course.
And someone else to tell you, change that, or and it can make a massive difference. If we hadn't opened in New York, it'd be a very different business to what we are now. If I'd taken advice about closing certain sections of the business that weren't for me, it could be a very different business now.
So all right. So that final questions are: not everyone's going to end up working with you, right? Not everyone can do that. They're not prepared. They haven't got the time. Whatever. So anyone listening, and again, we're getting a lot of listeners now, but also this is evergreen. People are going to listen to this in the future.
Yeah.
Give me 3 tips that you would give any aspiring budding entrepreneur, or someone who's either in the thick of growing at the minute or they're about to start. 3 tips that they should hold on to be successful as a recruitment owner.
The biggest thing is to look at themselves, to actually critically look at themselves.
Self-awareness, please.
Self-awareness. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And be really, really, really honest with yourself about what you need to do to maximize your strengths, but really work on the weaknesses, because it could be something small that's completely holding you back. It's to be able to articulate a clear vision. The biggest thing I speak to people about, I got all my team leaders once and I said, what makes a good leader? And all of them said having a clear vision. And they said, we follow you because you have a very clear vision of where the company's going and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, great. I was like, so can all of you tell me what the vision is that you paint to your teams? And none of them could articulate their vision. So it's the one thing that everyone says is key to leadership, but it's the one thing that a lot of people, for some reason, don't actually sit down and work out and articulate. And next one is cash, and it's really working out what cash you need to scale to the next level and how you're going to get it, and having unique ways of getting cash, because cash is hard to get, especially when you're a small company. And I had to come up with novel ideas like selling shares or guaranteeing 8% returns to staff if they reinvested, and all the way along it's been balancing that kind of cash act. And the fourth one, I know you asked me three, but the fourth one is just being prepared to put in all hours to make it work, because you've got to be 100% in it, and no one's going to follow you if you're the type of leader that gets in, you're last in the office and first to leave. No. Yeah, you have to be the one who is the grafter, who, if I look at football, I always think one of the best leaders I've ever seen on a football pitch is David Beckham. People might laugh at that, but I remember you have Tony Adams or whatever, the ex-England manager, because shows how old I am, shouting at everyone, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and in a way, like a good manager, leader, naturally. But David Beckham was the silent guy who just turned up, first one in training. Yeah, Alex Ferguson would always say, first one on the pitch, last one off the pitch.
Yeah.
When the chips are down, always fighting, and he just led through inspiration, and that's the best way to lead. And you got to be that guy or that girl, who's leading from the front. If you're not leading from the front, no one's going to follow you.
Exactly. All right. Well, look, I think amazing nuggets of information, and do you know what? It's just there's too much of your story to get in an hour, and we've got an hour and 10. There's just too much. So maybe we'll have a part 2 with you at some point. I think it'd be
sure.
We'll see what's going on.
Come back.
Yeah, I'd love it. If anyone wants to reach out, obviously you're interested in investment, but at the same time, if people just want to ask you questions, I imagine you're open to listening.
Yeah.
What's the best way to get hold of you?
Because the best way to get hold of me is email me. So t.glanfield@wearelhi.com.
Right.
I still haven't set up the Tech Capital one yet. But or try me on LinkedIn. I'm going to be better at checking my messages now on LinkedIn.
I'm going to start helping with you getting that sorted out, I think.
But the best way is to reach out to me. A lot of people don't, and the ones that do, I do try and meet. And I met with someone today who just asked me their advice on stay up in the States, who I didn't know very well. And we had a great meeting. And it's been great to meet you, Sean. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, first time meeting you as well. So look, thanks so much, Tom. This will be going out very soon, and anyone who's listening, please do reach out to Tom. This guy is one of the shining lights in the industry. There's not many who've done what you've done, so well done, mate. And that's it for another episode of The Rag. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed recording it. As I always ask, if you are listening and you're getting value from this podcast, my aim is to reach as many recruitment owners, aspiring recruitment owners around the world as possible. So get on LinkedIn, share your views, share your thoughts, tell your friends. I do get stories every week now of people saying, you know what, someone just WhatsApped me your episode, I loved it. So I know people are doing this. Please do. Also on the Apple Store, we get to travel much further the more reviews and ratings we get. So please be generous, get on there as well. I'll be back again next Wednesday with another story of growth. See you soon.